This is a video of the public hearing on March 26, 2019 by the Florida Department of Transportation in regards to the expansion of I-275 north of Martin Luther King, known as Section 7, within the Greater Seminole Heights, also known as Tampa's urban core. Partially a full house. Good to know who's here and who's not. That's probably the biggest take from the For some reason, all the men are standing in the back, which I guess is a good thing.
We will be starting our formal portion of the public hearing in about 4 minutes. You can make these
It looks like the meeting's about to come to order, so I'm going to log out, log back in one more time. I don't want to do this in one solo shot.
Of Beers Avenue. You may also provide comments regarding the project documents available here this evening. Preferred build alternative for the I-275 improvements are based on environmental and engineering analysis completed to date, as well as on public comment that we have received. The PD&E studies are examining the effects of providing operational improvements on I-275 from I-4 to north of MLK Boulevard and the widening of I-275 from north of MLK Boulevard to north of Beers Avenue. I-275 is a strategic intermodal system, or SIS, highway. The SIS is the state's network of high-priority facilities. The FDOT has designated I-275 as an emergency evacuation route. The evaluation of I-275 has identified projects that improve mobility on the interstate system and reduce the cost of traffic congestion. The preferred build alternative typical section for the operational improvement from I-4 to north of MLK Boulevard includes the addition of 12-foot dedicated auxiliary lanes in each direction from I-4 to north of MLK Boulevard and accommodating transit on the inside shoulders. These improvements are being completed to transition from the existing conditions to the proposed widening of I-275 from north of MLK Boulevard to north of Beers Avenue. The preferred build alternative typical section from north of MLK Boulevard to north of Beers Avenue include adding one general purpose lane in each direction, providing 4 12-foot wide general purpose lanes and a 15-foot wide full depth inside shoulder in each direction to accommodate transit. A 2-foot wide concrete barrier will separate the two directions of traffic. Improvements are also being made at the Hillsborough Avenue and the Beers Avenue interchanges as part of this study. There will be no configuration changes at the other interchanges. No right-of-way will be required to build improvements for the main line of I-275 for either project. However, minimal right-of-way will be needed near the Beers Avenue interchange for stormwater ponds. Now I'm going to give you some information about right-of-way acquisition and how you can make comments on the project. On projects such as this, one of the unavoidable consequences is the necessary acquisition of property and relocation of families and businesses. On this project, however, we anticipate no relocations. Informational brochures describing the acquisition process are available this evening at the right-of-way table. FDOT right-of-way specialists who are familiar with the right-of-way acquisition process are available this evening and will be happy to answer any questions you may have. At this time, I would like to ask FDOT right-of-way specialists Joe Murphy and Susan Cooper to please identify yourselves to anyone who has a right-of-way question and will know who to talk to this evening. Back in the corner there.
Back here in the corner.
Thank you. When you arrived this evening, you should have received the project newsletter containing project information and a comment form. If you were not able to sign in or did not receive the handouts, please stop by our sign-in table before leaving this evening. If you have not already done so, please watch the presentation that is running continuously at the public hearing tonight in the room across the hall. It describes the proposed I-275 improvements in greater detail. Before I continue, I would like to recognize any elected officials or their representatives who are here tonight. Please stand and introduce yourselves for the record.
Pat Capital, Hillsborough County Commissioner, Seminole Heights resident.
Mariella Smith, Hillsborough County Commissioner.
Thank you for coming. Those who wish to provide comments on this formal portion of the public hearing should complete a speaker card and submit it to a department representative. If you did not receive a speaker's card and would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand and an FDOT representative will be happy to provide you with one. In addition to making an oral statement during this formal portion of the hearing, you can also make a comment to the court reporter here tonight. After this formal portion of the public, you can make a comment to the court reporter here tonight after the formal portion of this public hearing. You may also submit your comments to the FDOT in writing. Comment forms can be placed in one of the comment boxes here this evening, or you can be completed at a later date and mailed to us at the pre-printed address on the back of the sheet. You may also email comments to us from the project website found on the front of the handout. Please keep in mind that comments must be postmarked or emailed no later than Friday, April 5th, 2019, to be included in the official public hearing record. We will now begin to take public comments. I will call each speaker in the order in which their request was received. In an effort to accommodate all requests to speak, we ask that each speaker keep their comments to 3 minutes. Those who wish to provide additional comments may return to the microphone following the last speaker, or you may present your additional comments directly to the court reporter at the end of tonight's hearing. As I call your name, please step to the microphone and state your name and address before making your comment. If you have questions, please see one of the FDOT representatives following this portion of the hearing. Our first speaker is Francisco Arias. Come to the mic and if you would say your name and your address.
My name is Francisco Arias. My address 205 East 131st Avenue, Tampa, Florida 33612. And I have a question. My property is right next to the highway. How this project will impact the property value?
This is not a question and answer period, but if you would see one of our right-of-way representatives afterwards, they can give you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the microphone needs to face the crowd. We can't hear him. I didn't hear what you said.
The microphone is faced so that the court reporter can get the comments from the audience. But we'll try and make sure that we pull the mic closer to the person speaking so that you might hear. Our next speaker is Doug Jessup.
Good evening. I hope you hear me. Doug Jessup, 6007 Saloni Avenue. I'm here to speak for the no-build option, which I've taken to be the only viable option here. Before I start, I'd like to point out that I think the FDOT expression operational improvement is a blatant bit of propaganda. What we have on offer here is not improvements. What we have is the attempt to ram more capacity through. What we have here is the attempt to ram more capacity through an interstate system that has failed. And in fact, adding vehicle capacity to urban interstates has been shown widely to do nothing to reduce travel times, to ease congestion, to mitigate pollution, or to achieve any other goal other than enriching highway construction firms. A fine example of this is from 2003 to 2006, when FDOT insisted that adding capacity to Malfunction Junction, along with the flyover ramp, was going to ease congestion and make things much better. As a matter of fact, $80 million was spent, property was destroyed, and no positive effect was to be found. And indeed, if you look throughout the country, you can see that every example of this sort of project has had bad outcomes. Money is wasted, neighborhoods are harmed, pollution is exacerbated, and no improvements in traffic flow can be found. Looking further, we can see that in fact the best practices for urban freeways show that removing them is the way to achieve enormous benefits at a modest cost.
I'm sorry, sir, you don't have to slow down.
I only have 3 minutes. The best practices for urban freeways are to remove them, and there's a wide literature on this that shows conclusively that ripping these things out does about as much good for Tampa as, say, taking the Berlin Wall from Berlin did. And that's where I think FDOT's focus should be. Finally, I'd like to point out the opportunity cost here. We're talking about spending over $300 million. Let's imagine that that $300 million was spent on something known to work, regional rail, for example. How much better would we be off if that scenario were realized, rather than attempting once again to build our way out of a congestion problem by adding capacity to an interstate system that doesn't work? And on that, I'll close.
Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Susan McClung.
Hi, my name's Susan McClung. I live on 5607 North Branch Avenue, Tampa 33604. And I'd like to say that I think this project is kind of putting the cart before the horse, because from what I understand, there is not funding for redoing the junction of I-4 and I-275. And all of us who travel 275, we know where the source of the congestion comes from, and it doesn't come from Bears Avenue, it comes from down there at that junction. That's what holds everything up, and you can make these lanes 20 lanes wide, and when they get down to that bottleneck, that is the problem. It's poorly designed, and if I remember right, it was designed not too long ago, and it hasn't. What's going to change? It was poorly designed when you did it the last time. How do we know there's going to be any improvement now? You have that one flyover, which isn't enough. You have all those lanes going down to 2 lanes, and that is where the source of the problem is. Plus, we had, at Hillsborough, I know the bridge was widened, and we listened to endless construction there. And now, why did you widen it then if you're going to do it in a few years? Could you intend to re-widen it again after you already spent all that money widening it? Another comment is that there is environmental impact, and that constant noise, that constant banging is going to drive away our wildlife, not only us, but it's going to humans, but it's also going to drive away migratory birds and the wildlife that we, urban wildlife that we enjoy in our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Ingrid Smith.
Could you announce the next few and get them lined up, maybe?
Ingrid Smith.
Hi, laryngitis, sinus heating, laryngitis. Doug? Or Rick?
She wants to see time
I have laryngitis.
whenever you call.
We give each speaker 3 minutes. If we have time at the end, then we'll come back up. But, thank you. Our next speaker is Bill Hunter.
My name is Bill Hunter. I live at 5806 North Branch Avenue in Seminole Heights. I will say that this proposal does look better than the previous ones. However, I am skeptical as to the what is called improvements, because after all, this plan is coming to us from the same people who designed the ramp from southbound 275 to eastbound I-4.
Our next speaker is Rick Fernandez.
Madam Court Reporter, are you ready to go? I'm Rick Fernandez, 2906 North Elmore Avenue, Tampa 33602. That's in Tampa Heights. I'll try to keep the pace right for you. First of all, I want to thank the community for showing up today. This is a hell of an attendance, and it's at least competitive with some of the better MPO hearings that I've been to over the last 4 or 5 years in terms of number of people in seats. So thank you. This is very important, and I suggest the community fully understands that. I also want to thank the elected officials that are here. They've identified themselves, but taking the time to be here to listen to what we have to say is also very important. And there are several candidates for elected office that are floating around among us. Thank you, too, for coming. This kind of presentation is very much a situation where people are trying to take in information like drinking from the proverbial fire hydrant. It is extremely difficult to conceive how someone could walk into this chamber tonight, assuming they were cold on this issue, trying to understand what's happening to them. But to the extent that they've made the effort, that is certainly to be applauded. But as I have said to FDOT on numerous occasions, this type of open house presentation, although it may serve to check off a box on your PD&E study and perhaps help you in your communications with the Federal Highway Administration, it doesn't do a whole lot for the community that's trying to educate itself. We need to find a better way to communicate this information so people can make reasoned and informed decisions. Now, to the point, I stand opposed to your preferred alternative alignment regarding Section 7 of the interstate. And to keep it short and within the time permitted, Kurt, you may remember, I'm sure you do, just a couple of weeks ago, you came to the Citizens Advisory Committee of the MPO and you presented a PowerPoint presentation to us. And in that PowerPoint presentation, you, one of the slides talked about the problems that we're trying to solve with this particular project. And it's the purpose and need section of the PowerPoint that you presented. The first was increased capacity to relieve congestion. Strike one. You are suggesting a capacity project here, and the capacity, whatever it is that is going to be provided, will, through induced demand, be taken up again within a relatively short period of time. We certainly have history to suggest that. So if you're trying to relieve congestion through this capacity project, that's not going to be reached. Second, enhance safety. Strike two. You're talking about more cars in more lanes at the same speed. I see no way logically that anyone could argue that that is going to enhance safety for the community. Three, enhance corridor operation and conditions. Well, I don't understand how that happens either, because at peak hours, given induced demand, you're going to have just a larger parking lot.
I ask that you wrap it up, Mr. Hernandez.
And at off hours, you're going to have a larger road to maintain. So in short, you have presented a project which actually accomplishes none of your intended goals, and you will be increasing pollution and frankly adding nothing to the quality of life in this community going forward. FDOT has to do better. We deserve better. Transit first. Thank you for your comment.
Our next speaker is Josh Frank.
Good afternoon, Josh Frank, 2010 East Palm Avenue, Ybor City. I'm up here in favor of the no-bill scenario as well. I think those of you who know me or know of my work or have heard of my work, I'm the designer behind the Boulevard concept. And, you know, Rick pretty much said everything I was going to say. The simple answer is, for this project, adding 2 lanes across roughly 10 miles, 9-10 miles of interstate only improves congestion slightly for a fixed amount of time, maybe only a few years after construction's wrapped up, and then they fill back up again. So our collective focus needs to be on making projects like this obsolete, removing cars from this corridor by alternatives, whether it's CSX, regional rail, streetcar expansion, HART, BRT projects, whatever, because if this gets built, it will only be 3 to 5 years before we have the same conversation, and it's 2 more lanes, and then 2 more lanes, and You only have to look at Houston, Texas for projects like the Katy Freeway, which are 22 miles or 22 lanes across, and it's already at capacity well before it was supposed to be. So again, I'm against any expansion or increased capacity. I would also suggest that for those of you who want to learn more about the Boulevard, it's not dead. I'm doing as much as I can on it. Please go to www.blvdtampa.com and learn a little bit more about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is James Shirk.
Jimmy.
I'm James Sharp. I live at 1004 East River Place, apartment 110, Tampa, Florida 33603. And my problem with this is that we really have, I reviewed what you said about air quality, and I find it totally disingenuous. We do know that in Tampa we have a very severe problem with smog in the summertime, and it's almost entirely caused by transportation. And I can't see that adding more vehicular capacity is going to somehow reduce the amount of emissions and consequently the amount of smog. So I think that we should, if we're spending money on capital improvements, it should be on electric buses, not widening interstates. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Chad Parker. Our next speaker is Michelle Cookson.
Hi, I'm Michelle Cookson, 6002 North Swanee Avenue, Tampa 33604. Over 4 years ago, when the concerned citizens of this community first learned of a catastrophic plan to further decimate a resurgent community, we rallied and immediately poured hundreds upon thousands of hours of our unpaid time into research, asking the critical questions, and challenging TVX, something that was quickly unraveled and exposed for the boondoggle it is, and still remains so. Segment 7 should only be handled one way, the no-build option. It is time to finish the remnants of a process still underpinned by a 1990s study. When we spoke all those years ago, the constant rejoinder was, FDOT would love to work with the community with transit, but there's no local match on funding. Well, today there is. We need to instead have the TIP funding priorities massively reordered to bring those transit projects forward and stop this interstate-only emphasis. We need for the department to get back to working on the HART study for the Florida-Tampa Street pairs, along with Nebraska Avenue, and to implement true bus rapid transit service for Metro Rapid. That needs to include signalization prioritization, frequent headways, and true rapid service. Finish the Heights mobility study and establish a rapid completion date. We need to hurry up with the emphasis on transit projects. Prioritize acquiring the CSX rail line with, again, rapid projected completion dates. Prioritize all local non-interstate Vision Zero improvements. Work with this community that has so very clearly expressed the time is way overdue to put people first. Their safety, their ability to move around and connect within their community safely by some other means than a car, and to improve our urban transportation corridors to reflect several connected high-capacity transit choices.
Our next speaker is Doreen Jessup.
607 North Sewanee Avenue. Is that better? Yeah. Doreen Jessup, 6007 North Sewanee Avenue. I've been coming to these meetings now for over 4 years, as have many others here. And my observation tonight is that we're almost back where we started. Our objection to this improvement or widening, and it is indeed a widening of I-275 through this corridor, is partly based on, I think, the very well stated cases that it will have little effect and will do very little to alleviate congestion and improve traffic flow. And also largely because of the negative impact that it is going to have on the neighborhoods such as Seminole Heights, Tampa Heights, Ybor. I want to point out to the people who have not perhaps been coming to these meetings for 4 years that the reason that there is no additional planned relocations and taking of properties is because it's already been done. And the impact has already been felt, and it will be felt further because this road will be bigger and wider and louder and further intruding into our neighborhoods. And this will have a very negative impact on our economies and on the growth and revitalization that we have seen over the past decade here. We have been through this. We have a freeway that divided this neighborhood once, and there has been no mitigation efforts that were promised by FDOT ever. And now here we are again being told that we have improvements when in fact, really all you did was take away the tolls. And it's still the same road, it's going to do the same damage to this neighborhood, and we are still opposed to it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rick Pfeiffer.
My name's Rick Pfeiffer. I live at 1408 East 10. I also have my business at 5111 North Nebraska. Okay. My name is Rick Pfeiffer. I live at 1408 East Hannah. I also have my business at 5111 North Nebraska. I'm here to basically say no to any additional vehicular lanes, toll or otherwise. The poorly designed interchange at I-4 creates a lot of problems because the traffic backs up past MLK, and then as people try to jump the line, they create accidents further down, closer into Tampa Heights, around Fort Brask and stuff, as they're trying to cut in. So that's an FDOT poorly designed issue. In terms of no build, I personally believe that it should be a no build unless that's to create some type of mass transit corridor or envelope. And as far as sound barriers, they should have been put in decades ago. And what I would ask of FDOT most importantly is please prove that you're the Department of Transportation and not just the Department of Roads and Asphalt.
Our next speaker is Michael Kozlowski.
Hi, my name is Michael Kahelski. My address is 323 East 132nd Avenue, 33612. First, I want to thank you for the talk to me and kind of giving me a little guidance. I understand that FOAs must expand and progress must happen. I don't have much of an opinion on one way or the other, the best way of doing it. However, my property and a few other properties nearby have been left out when the sound wall was built several years ago. With the years, the noise is becoming worse and worse. It's becoming, to me, a health issue. I can't sleep at night. Sirens are waking me up, and the hum of trucks, I believe, is making me hard of hearing. The one lady I spoke to said that expanding the sound wall wouldn't necessarily be that effective. I don't know, but I know that the properties that have the sound wall that's expanded past their property are a lot quieter than mine. I see three possible solutions for the whole group of property, and I spoke to my neighbors that are in the same opinion. Either you guys expand the sound wall, find some technological way to to abate this externality. The other thing is just buy us out. I'd be much more happy to buy a house next to a river and Valley Road than screaming police sirens and semi-trucks. The third possibility is there is a lot of demand in that area for commercial property. One of my neighbors a couple years ago was able to convert his property and he's running a business out of it. I believe that there is a real opportunity that dealerships and Fowler and other businesses would find value in these properties, which are, from a residential standpoint, becoming more and more deteriorated from the usability by this free externality, and it's only going to get worse for everybody's benefit. I mean, some people disagree, but whatever, assuming we come to a good solution, don't leave us behind. If you just allow us to convert it to commercial, we will find buyers who will want to put whatever, maybe a gas station there, maybe maybe a mechanic shop, maybe the dealerships who want to buy this land, and then the free market will be able to sell those properties and buy them someplace nice. So I'm asking, at the very least, come out there, 3231 32nd Avenue, we'll review the sound study. This really nice lady I spoke to a minute ago told me that based on her study, my property is right on the border, that it was just under whatever your limit is. Guys, if it was just under your limit is when you did the study, and it's getting worse every day, every month, think about what it's going to be like a month or two or a year or two after you do this. All I'm asking is that you guys work with us to help us mitigate this externality before I completely lose my hearing and I'm not able to sleep because of the noise level. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Mauricio Rojas.
Transit.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a statement? If you could state your name and address, and then we will have you fill out a card.
I'm County Commissioner Pat Kemp, Hillsborough County Commission, and Seminole Heights resident of like 35 years or something. In fact, I walked here from my house right over there. And one of the original founders of the Old Seminole Heights Neighborhood Association. And I've been working on these issues as a citizen up till 2 years ago when I was elected to the County Commission. And I just want to, some of the comments made tonight, I just want to give you some status on some of those. First of all, thank you all for coming out. I just think the Heights has incredible residents that care so much about the future of this community and about the future of transit and good land use and transportation and livable places. And so you're a model, I think, for the region of what a community can do. Second of all, I do hope that we can get FDOT to speed up the mobility study. As I was coming in, someone said, you know, I've been waiting for that since 2008. They said it had been an 11-year study. I'm not sure if it was that long, but I know that I've been at least, quite seriously, 25 years ago, started trying. I worked on the Hillsborough Avenue. I was trying to work on the Tampa and Florida Street some 25 years ago. So it's been a long time coming, and I hope that we can really make those streets for our communities much safer and much better for all of us. It's so disturbing to see houses hit, much less people, and we're number 2 in the nation for bicycle and pedestrian deaths in Hillsborough County. So the other thing I'd like to assure you is that at heart we do intend to go and we are working hard, and I've been pushing this for the last 2 years, but we are moving into, I believe, once we get the tax dollars, this is a hard responsibility, but electric buses, I'd like to see us deploy those, and certainly for our air quality. Second of all, I'm looking for everyone in this room to help with the kinds of transportation issues that we have, transit issues in particular. I'd like to see our fleet double. I'd like to see a lot of set-aside roadways for buses and the lighting and the kinds of things we need to move our buses faster through our streets and be able to move people on our bus system. And I made a motion at HART the other week, and it was passed unanimously without any dissent that we should, as HART, pursue the CSX tracks, using those tracks for commuter use that are for sale throughout much of Hillsborough County, moving us from the end of South Tampa through Ybor downtown and up to USF, goes directly to USF to Lutz, over through Town and Country, directly to the airport, and over through Pinellas and North Dapasco. So I'd like to see that done, and we have the people there to do that also within the county. We've been really pushing Vision Zero to make our sidewalks, to put sidewalks in, to put in our streets. For most of us here, it's the city that needs to be the lead on that through this community. But for unincorporated county, we also just passed a policy, 6-0 unanimously, that within a 2-mile area around any school, which actually covers most of unincorporated county, that we should have sidewalks, that we should have safe ways for kids to get to school, and crosswalks, and the whole, that there should be safety zones 2 miles around every school. So I'd just like to let you all know that that is all moving. I thank you all for, because it's your vigilance and your commitment that is making the difference in the whole county. So thank you all.
Our next speaker is Daniel Beggs.
I was debating whether I wanted to come up and talk or not. I used to teach school, so I've got a loud voice. Probably don't need the microphone, but I do talk a little fast, so I will slow down. Daniel Beggs is the name, 600 East North Street, just up the street, about a block and a half from here. I agree with a lot of the statements that have been given tonight. Sound barriers, yes. At night, it's a little uncomforting to hear big trucks rumble by and motorcycles screaming. And then all of a sudden, you hear screech of brakes. More lanes, is that going to increase that type of problem? In manufacturing, when you have a place that holds up the flow of your process, it's called a bottleneck. We've talked about the bottleneck. The major one is I-4 to I-275. I want to compare it to the good interchange at I-75 and I-275. That one seems to be very nice. You've got multiple lanes going to each of the interstates. That, I believe, is a proper way to join the two interstates. Okay? So, I'm sure FDOT has a whole slew of engineers. Hopefully some of them understand, some process flow and how traffic should flow, like manufacturing, throwing goods from one end to another end. So if they take a look at that, the widening of these lanes would be second to improving the interchanges. So once again, I say thank you for all the other people who've come up and said everything that I wanted to say, but I figured I'd just come up and say it anyway. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is James Chapman.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? No. No.
Closer.
I'm not nearly as informed as a lot of people. I'm just up here to give a little bit more information. My house actually sits on the highway. I don't know if you guys know where the Yukon transfer station is. I'm just down the road from that. And at 7:30 every morning, there's the backup right there. So that's from I-4 all the way to where the Yukon station is. It lasts until about 9:20 every morning. So if you add one more lane, that's still going to be there. It's still going to back up. It's not going to get any different. Having a wall up there, that would be awesome because then it would cut down the noise. Another big thing going north from I-4 to 275, having just that one lane merge in, maybe you could widen it, make it 2 lanes merge in, but there's still a huge backup cause because of that. And another issue that's going on is the way that people are driving. I see it worse and worse and worse every year. People are driving 100 miles an hour on 275 and I-4 when they shouldn't be doing any more than 50. Every day when I was coming home from work in Brandon, I would have people drive through the median to get around me to get onto 275. So I think there needs to be more posted signs saying speed limit, more education of people of how to merge, how to drive, instead of spending the money on widening something which is bottlenecking all the time. Thank
you. Our next speaker is Shane Ragiel.
Hey there, Shane Ragiel. It's 507 East Nebraska Avenue, Tampa Heights. I'm coming to speak to tell you that I need to recognize the fact that a lot of us that have moved to the Heights recently are standing on shoulders. I know that there's people like Rick, Commissioner Kemp, that have been in the game for a long time. I moved to Tampa Heights. I live 5 houses away from the Florida Nebraska entrance 2 years ago. And I need to explain what in those 2 years I've recognized what has happened living 5 houses down from 275 East. I have to change my air filter every single month. I have pets. I have to clean their ears every week because of the pollution buildup that they have. I have increased amount of asthma. I have to clean my front porch every couple of weeks just because of more than just pollen that you think it was, but it's black. You spray down your house and you see drips of black soot coming down the siding of your home. Now, I'm not going to say that I didn't think that living near an interstate was going to be great, but I also have the narration of the flyover every evening, of that merge that was supposed to make everything great. I have the narration of screeches and sirens every single night as well. These are things that need to be fixed. And by turning on the faucet up at Bears to make sure that the water flows faster, so the narrow opening over here is not going to do it. And I want to recognize, I work in advertising. I don't know how roads work. But I know that if you give people the option to sit and if you say it's going to be faster, it may sound great to everybody who doesn't live 5 houses away from the interstate. But the people that are being directly impacted know that's what you're seeing in the room. And for every person that's been here for the last 4 years and saying this, you're going to have more and more people that are moving into the neighborhood that are going to keep on saying the same things. And we're invigorated. We have to deal with this. It's what we breathe, it's what we hear, and it's what we smell. So I just want to give you a heads up. This is going to continue, and it could be another 4 years, but it's not going to get built.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a statement? You could come up and just state your name, and we can have you fill the card out after you speak. State your name and your address for the record.
Marilyn Valentine, 4108 Marguerite Street.
And when the last gentleman was just speaking about how dirty it is, I was 10 years old when the interstate first went in 1962. The health impact has been horrendous there. I myself have had cancer, my father had cancer, my sister died from cancer. The next door neighbor died of cancer, 2 neighbors next door there died of cancer, and it's like the whole block, people are dying of cancer or dying of Parkinson's disease way too young. And I see the smut, or whatever you call it, the soot, that comes onto the house there, onto the cars, and there's no way to get rid of it. And I really think something needs to be done about the health impact there before more is put on there. That's it.
Please state your name and your address.
Yitzka Bergman. Yitzka Bergman, Jitske Bergman. 704 West Hiawatha, Tampa 33604. I am the mother of the person who was the second one to speak. She has laryngitis of the worst kind right now, which apparently is not due to asthma, is not due to anything she's allergic to, but her doctor told her this morning it was due to the bad air around here. So, even though she didn't say so, I'm here to speak. I was looking at this section. To me, as a European, and as somebody who only moved here 9 years ago, this looks like a 1940 plan. And what you're doing is putting a lot of money into something that is going to be ready about 2030, and then it will be 100 years too late. Now, when I started moving here, I made a concerted effort to do buses, to sit in a bus to see how that worked out. And one of the persons who is now running for mayor of this city, and one of the talks said, the trouble here in Tampa is cultural. We need to teach everybody to take a bus. But that is one thing. But this stretch here comes for the most part from Wesley Chapel, drives through here, and then a whole lot of people will go to St. Petersburg. Why are they driving through the center of Tampa? You should lead them somewhere else. Other cities have beltways. What this thing needs is a beltway, because at least then you leave half of these people off, dropping out there, wherever that is there. There's the center of Tampa. By adding more lanes, you will get more people being dumped into the center of town with nowhere to go. I have gotten 3 traffic tickets so far parking because I cannot get into the parking garage, because on good days like Saturday or Sunday, it backs up into, actually I think it's called, you have to wait for a parking spot outside on the street. Then try and leave the parking garages, and the one next to the library, and you stand inside in line in the parking garage trying to get out. None of this should happen. What we need is transit.
We ask that you wrap up your comments.
We need transit. And we need you to go on them.
Thank you for the comment.
Yes, I'm Florence Marsan. I live at 1022 East Jean Street. Also, I come from Europe. But I see other cities in America that have common sense. It is not about us not wanting to use public transit. It's about the fact that public transit is almost non-existent in Tampa. If it takes me 2 hours, or if it takes me even, gosh, 3/4 of an hour more to transit to my work, and then I have to go through fairly dangerous area to get to my building, I'm not going to do it. So, also about all these studies that you're doing, why don't you put the money in public transit first, then do the study? That's it.
Thank you. Right, is there anyone that's ready to speak with you or comment?
I just have one question.
This, you gotta come to the mic and start a question and answer.
Whoever is going to
Ma'am.
decide.
Ask that you state your name and your address.
Janet Owens, 8510.5 North Seminole Avenue. You all are talking about building this. When did it come up? I don't know if the people had time to put their input in it. Because you already done decided that's what you are going to do. And whoever's going to do this, I hope they didn't do the one on 275 at Florida. That is messed up. So now, if that same engineer going to do this is going to be messed up too. Because this, I don't even take the interstate anymore. Because that is so messed up. You had at one time, you had, it's not the sheriff, highway patrol, ticketing people because they in this lane instead of trying to get over. But everybody blocked this lane. And that's a mess. So this might be a mess too. Because it makes no sense. And you should try to correct the problem that you already have instead of trying to build something new. No community, nobody, none of us in here had any input. You all did input, but then you're going to bring it to us and let us know this is what you're going to do. That's not right. That's not fair.
Our next speaker is David Coleman.
Hello again. My name is Dave Holman, and I'm from 13618 North Florida Avenue, Lot 18 in Tampa. I'm in District 2. Outside the city limits, but I'm quite adjacent. I'm 141. I'm adjacent to 275. You gave me a lot of time before this meeting, and I thank you for that. You said that here in this meeting, I'm hearing that everybody's of like mind. I was trying to convince you of the bottlenecking and the issue with Ford, and you said to me that you were aware of them, but that the study hasn't been done for those yet, that we're doing this. So in other words, you're telling me that the root of the tree that you planted a long time ago is dead, but you want to add more to the branches. It makes no sense to me. After having sat in this meeting, she had brought up, Kemp had brought up about some traffic safety and issues crossing things, especially around schools. There's one right here on Bears next to my road. And why I came here today is because of the deaths of 3 teenagers in 2 days on North Florida Avenue. First Josiah Pinner, and then the 2 girls from Columbia who died from a pickup truck rolling over them at 45 miles an hour. And I'm being stymied about how I can respond, how the community can respond. The road, see, down in Bay Shore, 2 people died, and the next day the speed limit was 35 miles an hour. Up around 3 people died, and nothing is being done. You said to me today that it would be law enforcement that would deal with the speeding and whatnot, and also that it's. I went to the CAC meeting this past Friday. They directed me that I needed to speak to Florida DOT about trying to get the speed limit reduced. As it is over here, 40 miles an hour, Once you get north of Waters, all the way to Bears, it's 45, and that's too fast. It's a marginalized neighborhood. We have people pulling baskets going to the supermarket, people in wheelchairs and children. It doesn't fit, it doesn't work. And what I'm trying to get at is, oh, the millions of dollars that you want to spend on this, she brought it up, and so many other people. You need to focus on Nebraska, on Florida. This is absurd, and you don't even have a plan on how to fix the bottlenecks. That makes no sense whatsoever. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Haynes.
Yeah, real quick, I was surprised when I got the pamphlet. I live on 6710 North Harris Street, behind the post office, and I'm interested in seeing if there's going to be an expansion to the eminent domain part of it, because I'm planning on buying the 2 houses from my friends next door kind of thing. I wanted to keep that as a long-term investment property. And I was working Seaman and been all over the world. The main thing that this should have been was combined with I-4 or something like that, is to get the people that are from out of town, like St. Pete, going to Orlando, whatever, like the one lady said. The loop idea, like we have in Houston and New Orleans and somewhat around Atlanta, et cetera, Chicago, all those big circular, huge 12-lane highways around what you want to turn back into as a regional center where people can walk safely and take their bicycles and walk their cars and school and all like that. I have properties in Brazil, and what we're doing in Brazil is turning that into a toll road. That means that 90% of the people are not going to ride on it unless they're going to pay. And then you have the money to do the malfunction junction repair. I was a cab driver 30 years ago here when I got hurt in the all field. Malfunction junctions have been the same for 30 years since I've been here as a real estate agent. But if you turn that into a toll road, you're going to solve all the problem immediately. And everybody can start thinking about fixing Nebraska, Florida, Highland, and all these Armenian, Howard, making those more transportation friendly. And the other thing about the buses, electric buses, won't solve the thing. If you have these big buses in foreign countries, they got jitneys in Miami. You outlaw the jitneys. They wanted to come here. They pick you up every 5 seconds. But it's going to cause a lot of pollution, so that's why the people are thinking electric. Right? You've got to be small, like in Rio de Janeiro. They've got 100 showing up right here at every 5 minutes. You just jump on and go. You don't even have time to pay that thing. You want mass trains, it's got to be the buses. It can't be the trains, because trains are too expensive. They never pay for themselves. But that is a toll road. I don't know if you've ever considered that. We need a loop around the regional center of Tampa area that people want to conserve and turn back into family-friendly stuff. The loop idea is what everybody's done all over the world. Okay.
Thank you for your comment. Florence Bashan, did you speak? Okay, our next speaker is Roxanne Handy.
My name is Roxanne Candy from 16203 September Drive, and I'm from Dukes, Florida 33549. And we are just north of that, north of Barris. And our biggest problem, we bought our house 40 years ago when it was 2 lanes. And when they increased it to 3 lanes, the traffic has been just terrible. The motorcycles, it's like the Daytona 500. We can hear all the way in our living room. It gets worse from Thursday afternoon all the way through Sunday. It's unbearable. I can't stand to go out in my yard. And we had asked for noise barriers back when they added that lane, but we were turned down because our neighborhood wasn't big enough. And I have sinus issues from all of that pollution. It's just awful. Now, we are well traveled, and we have experienced mass transit. The problem with buses is that you're putting more traffic on the road. And Miami has monorails which are working. But the problem is, like, as in Australia, you can take a monorail around the whole city and it drops you off at relevant places. We have no infrastructure for that set up. And until you do, all of these transit ideas are just, you know, what are you going to do once you get there to really drop you off? And it's the same thing with the taxis, the water taxi. Actually, I corresponded with Mayor Iorio, and I said, why are we using our waterway? But before you do, from Tampa to St. Pete, as they're trying out now, there's no place. Once you get off, you have to rent a car or take a bus to climb the roads and more. I mean, who loves to drive with school buses on the road? It'll just get worse. And I do agree that we need to fix that interchange, because every time I go by there, you can ask him. I say, geez, who did this engineering? It was one lane. Even going north from I.
We ask that you bring your comments to the
No, last thing is no tolls. You know, haven't you had enough with the debacle with the tolls?
Yes.
We pay taxes for the roads. They should be free.
We ask that you not, your opinion, Kevin.
Yes, everybody has their opinion, but we pay enough taxes.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else that would like to make a statement? If you would come and give us your name and your address, and we will have you complete the card afterwards.
My name is Becky Angel.
If we could keep the chatter down in the room so that the court reporter can hear clearly.
My name is Becky Angel, A-N-C-T-I-L, at 5702 Central Avenue. This is a bit off topic, but what we really need are traffic signals, turn signals at Central and Hillsborough. I live 3 blocks north of the Starbucks, and I'm just waiting for a fatality to happen. I mean, people are running that light all the time. So it's a little off topic, but it's something to consider. And also, 30 years ago, we were promised the retention, no noise barriers, and don't see it from Hillsborough to Watt. So I don't know, let's get on that.
Thank you for your comment. Ma'am, if you would come up and give us your name and your address.
My name is Robin Chung. I live at 2106 North Morgan Street in Tampa Heights. And I just want to bring up a point that nobody has made, that by the time people get through these traffic bottlenecks, jams, they're pissed off when they get home. And they're enraged, they drive like idiots because they want to get home and they can't, and adding more lanes is just going to make it worse. And I'm a proponent of the Boulevard plan, and I think you ought to put your time and your money into the major thoroughfares like Hillsborough, Tampa Street, Florida Avenue, Bush, and improve those. Because people are going to be much more calm driving down Boulevard than they are fighting to get home on 275.
Thank you for your comment.
Fox, 807 East Hannah. East Hannah Avenue. So we are directly affected by what you're proposing, as we were last time. We're directly east of 275. You have two properties over there. Now, I've been in construction for 40 years. Over 40 years. I'm a carpenter. I can build a house or tear it down and put it back any way. I know about that type of construction. Now, I don't know about road construction. However, I do pride myself on having a great deal of common sense. And when I make a mistake, I try not to repeat it. We did this before. Where is the common sense? That's all.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please state your name and your address.
Hi, I'm Blaney Whalen, and I live at 208 West Amelia Avenue in Tampa Heights. And I feel almost guilty saying this, but I'm about 7 blocks away from the highway. And there are probably people here that are jealous about that. But I will tell you, I hear the highway. I hear it at 2 o'clock in the morning. I hear it at 4 o'clock in the morning. I hear it at 6 o'clock in the morning. Yep. I also hear the helicopters when there are accidents. I hear the sirens. It's not peaceful. And then some other people mentioned about the pollution. Even though I live that far away, I have to wash off my house with black soot on a regular basis. That's not natural. It doesn't make any sense. Why do we want any more traffic? I don't understand that. So all these things, I went and sat and I listened to that little promo that was in the other room. Boy, it sounded great. I thought, yeah, I'll go for that. It's not the truth, though. I don't understand something. All across the nation are people that are asking for mass transit, that are asking for clean air, clean water, and silence, and sound pollution. And yet, Florida, again, is in last place. Again, why is Florida always so backwards? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, ask those that may have questions that I did not answer or could not answer. With this formal portion of USC staff, after we adjourn, we'll be glad to assist you. The public hearing transcript, written statements, exhibits, and reference material will be available for public inspection at the FDOT District 7 office, 11201 North McKinley Drive, Tampa, Florida, within 3 weeks. It is approximately 7:47, and I hereby close the formal portion of the public hearing for the Interstate 275 PD&E studies from I-4 to north of Beers Avenue. The Florida Department of Transportation thanks you for attending. Remember to be alert today, alive tomorrow. Safety doesn't happen by accident. Good night and drive safe.